The once upon a time elegant and upscale apartment complex called Wardman Courts, designed by Frank Russell White and another man, was built in the Columbia Heights area uptown by Harry Wardman. So this guy Harry had the real estate game sold up on Clifton Street, 16th Street, Connecticut Avenue, all uptown areas long ago. The luxury apartment complex Wardman Courts took on his last name. But by 1921, the name changed to the Clifton Terrace Apartments. And later by the 60s, the building started falling apart as usual because of poor management. They had no heat in the homes, rodents everywhere, cracked ceilings. So they went on a rent strike, court battles, and eventually housing took over. But the heydays of the crack era, the area CTU, 14th and Clifton, went through some harsh times. And according to what I read specifically about these apartments, if you've seen New Jack City and remember that building, the Carter, well, the Clifton Terrace Apartments during the crack era in the late 80s was a real-life Carter. But we talking about 3 buildings instead of the one on New Jack City. 3 buildings falling under Section 8 housing. So in the 80s, the manager at the time, James Womack, no relation to Bobby, he said he walked into an apartment at 10 a.m., acting on the tip, and found 9 people in one unit using drugs. I'm assuming crack, because in one room a lady was doing drugs sitting on the bed with her 7-year-old daughter beside her, but also what the manager saw written on the wall were the words, "Beam me up, Scotty, I control your body." He said no one stopped as he took pictures, they just kept going as if he wasn't there. The Washington Post article stated that some units at the Clifton Terrace Apartments were used as shooting galleries. They tore a kitchen apart to hide drugs in the water pipes. And the manager said that feuding drug dealers have been known to firebomb sections of one of the buildings at 1350 because it was a war taking place on the premises, most likely for control, considering that at the time, not only was crack the hot commodity, but according to the article, there were out-of-town dealers that some members of Clifton Terrace were battling right on the property grounds. This was a real violent, ugly situation. Even a reporter called it one of the deadliest areas in D.C. in the late 80s. So bad that 179 residents signed a petition back in 1988 threatening to put their rent money in escrow, which is something that allow a third party to temporarily hold the rent money until the property manager changed the conditions.
I sure hope they didn't get the rent money.
Let's roll the footage, y'all.
In city after American city, the war on drugs drags on. The casualties pile up. In some neighborhoods, the fight by residents to take back the streets is becoming more aggressive and more controversial. Jim Stewart has a case in point.
Nation's capital, the Clifton Terrace Apartments have become a fortress island in the heart of the city's meanest streets. The flurry of gunfire was aimed at members of the Nation of Islam, hired by the apartment managers as security guards and bitterly resented by the gangs and drug dealers who once infested the buildings. Joe Bridgeforth, whose management firm took over 2 years ago, said the Muslims succeeded where private security guards failed.
I think it's the fact that there is a respect for the young men in the Nation of Islam. I think it's a fearful respect.
There hasn't been a murder at Clifton Terrace now in more than 2 years. Yet before the Muslims arrived, police were called here on average of 20 times a week and recorded at least 6 homicides a year.
It was a living hell. It was not kept up, and we had terrible things happening here all the time. We had a lot of crime.
Residents say the latest gunplay erupted after black Muslim guards caught and severely beat this man armed with a gun in the apartment complex. It was an incident not unlike those in other major cities where black Muslims, frequently from the ranks of ex-convicts, are aggressively seeking building security contracts, most often in neighborhoods that have proven too mean and too dangerous for ordinary security guards.
We are not a violent people. We will only use that force which is necessary when, obviously, we are advanced or aggressed upon.
But privately, some residents say there is a price for the spruced-up appearance and tight-lipped security now evident at Clifton Terrace. The feeling that they and their children now live in an occupied territory and are caught in the middle. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
So that was 1992. They had to bring in the Nation of Islam, and it wasn't just Clifton Terrace. We got the raw footage of Mayfair where the NOI was posted up the same way and even beat the crap out of one dude who had a gun. But scratch all that, that's for another time. So from the video, it looked like they had the area under control, right? But I'm not sure what happened. If they got tired of playing security, if they said the job was done or ran out. But what they did, at least in the situation, was put a Band-Aid over a real wound. Oh yeah, they dressed it up nice, but it didn't solve anything. They just bought some time because later on in the mid-90s, they was right back at it around the area. Actually, the spring and summer of 97, according to the Post. A group of young men in the Clifton Terrace Apartments versus the former friends at the far side of the stoplight in the 1400 block of Clifton Street. Were going to war, back and forth murders and attempts. The feds investigated the area and indicted a number of guys. The prosecutor claimed some of them had knives, sawed-off shotguns, and choppers used to retaliate against the rivals, and that was 97. The Nation of Islam was nowhere to be found. I'm just wondering, did they think the change or peace would be permanent? Or was this promo for their security business on some, look, we came to DC and we created order? I don't know, I'm just saying, man, things sort of went back to regular scheduled programming to me. But at least the residents got the attention they needed as far as the apartments go. Then I saw that in 03, they renovated the complex and returned it back to its original name, Wardman Courts. And sidebar, the housing market in the country is horrible. It's a damn scam, man, designed to keep you under contract for all your good years. In this same area, they got row homes going for just under $1 million. A freaking 3-bedroom home on Euclid Street for $900,000. $900K to be wall to wall with your neighbor like an apartment. Go on your porch, take 2 steps to the left, and you in the neighbor's yard. They ought to be ashamed, man. Crazy, man, but that's it. That's all I got, a short joint. And get in the comments, especially if you remember the era in time when the NOI came through with the security. Night Rider 707, aka J, man, and this is DC Raw and Uncut.